Hey everybody, Chris here again from Barbell Shrugged and the Barbell Buddha podcast, back with some tips. Not quite hot tips. I don't have a lot of neon on. My underwear just plain. If you watch the latest Barbell Shrugged CrossFit Open videos, you'll know the hot tips are quite a thing. Just standard tips tonight, alright? Hope that's okay. I got a question a couple weeks ago about maxing out. And being a ex-powerlifter, I know quite a bit about lifting heavy things, so I thought I'd give you some practical tips to help you lift more next time you test. First things first, why is this important? We talked a couple videos ago about why it's important to carefully plan your training and pick the right loads so you build week to week to week in order to accumulate work and get better, get an adaptation you want so you get stronger and fitter, right? In order to do that effectively, you need data to train. So you got to test yourself. You got to know what you can do. First things first, I will advise you against ever going full meathead. This is something I know a lot about. In my powerlifting days, I would take way too much ephedra and caffeine, get way too amped up. I would consider a test of one-arm strength to be just everything that was important to me that day. If I failed, I'd be miserable. If I was intense, I'd slam bars and yell and scream. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't think you need to blare death metal at 11 on the stereo. It all sounds like it's very effective, but when you do without it a couple times, you realize that you really don't need that to be really, really strong and to express your strength. What I think you do need is to start by actually sitting down and being still for a while. So before you warm up, before you train or anything, just find a quiet corner, sit down, think of what you used to be able to do, think about what you'd like to do today, be calm, count your breaths, and get a plan in order. See yourself warming up and being successful. It'll set a good mindset. If you don't believe me, try it. Point number 3 here, well, the second practical point. Rouse the body and mind. Before we lift, we want to prepare to lift. How do we do that? Well, first things first, I think you go with sensible drug use. Even though I used to really love taking the 1,3-dimethylamine, whatever that is, I used to call it 1,3-dimethyl-meth-meth, strong stimulants like ephedra, no-dose capsules, all it does is make you jittery. If you're nervous and anxious about it, all you're doing is reinforcing the state where you're practicing the art of being out of control. You're practicing making mountains out of molehills. You're setting yourself up to not be a great athlete in the gym and not be really effective with your training. You want to go in calm and collected. So I think just a little cup of coffee or something to rouse the mind is plenty to get your focus. Sweat a bit. My favorite way to get my body warm, because if we're warm and sweating, we're ready. I like jumping rope because it stimulates my mind. It's quick action. I get plenty of blood flow. You can also do a little bit of like airdyne bicycle. Don't go too hard. We're going to sweat, not get tired. Light prowler work or light sled pushing. That's all you need. As soon as your heart rate picks up and as soon as you get a little clammy, you're done. Maybe a few joint circles to get the joints lubed, full range of motion stuff to get good and loose. Point 3 here, be excited, not angry. Not intense, not yelling and screaming, not high-fiving your bros and fucking pushing people around or whatever. All that can be fun if you take it too far. Again, you're practicing bad habits. We don't want to practice bad habits in the gym. We're trying to train. The last point, jump around before you go. The last thing I do before I take a heavy lift or start warming up to get my heavy lifts, I like a few box jumps. The more explosive and quick I can be, the lighter the barbell feels, the better my confidence when I get into the heavy attempts. So, all that for visualization, rousing in mind. Then you get to your attempts with the barbell. And I think the key to a good max effort session is getting there quickly. You're already warmed up, you're already focused, you're already prepared. You don't need to do a bunch of warm-up sets. You don't need to do sets of 10, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 3, 3, 3, and then take a warm-up attempt. You'll get too tired. I learned that lesson firsthand back in my powerlifting days when I would spend towards the end of a meet, I would take all these reps getting ready for my deadlift. By the time I got on the platform to pull my first deadlift, I was already pretty tired. One thing I noticed as I looked around to world champion powerlifters who I was sort of in the presence of, what they do, they get up after doing their other lifts, they rest a little while, they pull 135, they pull like 400 pounds, and they go out in a competition, they pull 800 for the first attempt. And I was really blown away by that, but what I realized was that they were already really warm. They had been lifting all day. They were really experienced. They were really prepared. Their body was tuned in. They didn't need to do all those reps. When I started going to that mentality, I realized that I didn't get injured. I didn't get flustered. I didn't get any of that. I just lifted really, really well. And I still had a little bit more energy at the end of the competition to do really well. So don't overdo the warm-ups when you get to the barbell. I got two examples, 400 pounds, let's say you want to deadlift that, or 200 pounds, both are fine depending on your strength levels. Always start with a barbell. This is your chance to make sure that your motor patterns are warmed up, that you're moving the way you need to be moved, get comfortable with the motion. And then for this big attempt, I would do 150 pounds, 250, 300, 350, and bang. Maybe I take 3 attempts to that big weight. This could be kilos too. It works both ways. For a lighter load, barbell for 5, 95, 125, 150, 175, bang. You're already prepared, you're already ready. Get your work done and have fun. There's one key exception to this. Works really good for squats, for presses, for deadlifts. For Olympic lifts, that's a little bit different. You might do a few more rounds of warming up because unlike the deadlift and the bench press and the squat, the Olympic lifts like the snatch, clean and jerk, and variations of them, you gotta move really well, and sometimes it's just not clicking. You're not gonna get too tired because your ability to produce force is not necessarily gonna limit your performance. It's your ability to produce force with a lot of quickness, be powerful, and also produce that power right when you need to do it. So it's a big timing thing. If you don't get the timing, you might need a few more rounds of warming up. And then on those variations of the lift, you can also go back down if it doesn't go your way and try again. You can't do that in a competition, but sometimes it's very good to do if you're testing in a gym. You can come back. But I will say, don't go overboard. And if you are doing like deadlifts and squats and presses, again, keep it very brief. That's all I've got for maxing out. If you dig this video, please comment below freely. I'll answer your comments. If you got other questions I didn't cover, we'll mix it up, we'll discuss. Also, share the video to your friends. If they are maniacs who take way too much ephedrine and shit before they lift, they get way too amped up and making mountains out of molehill, maybe they need this advice. Share, like, comment, and we'll see you next time. Peace.